Welcome back. Federal employees could keep the annual leave they've earned during the coronavirus and couldn't use instead of losing it at the end of the year. The Federal Worker Leave Fairness Act would let you keep that time you couldn't use because you had to work through the pandemic. Democratic Congressman Kilmer represents the 6th District in Washington State. He's one of the co-sponsors of that bill. Congressman, welcome. This is affecting people in your district, not just people in the D.C. area, right?
Absolutely. You know, the largest employer in the district I represent is the federal government. We have a large naval shipyard, you know, and these workers are performing a critical service for our country. They help maintain our carriers and our subs and are vital to our national security. And because of the pandemic, a lot of these workers haven't been able to travel, have chosen not to travel, trying to minimize health risks, limit their exposure to this virus, but also just ensuring that the important work continues uninterrupted. However, as you just mentioned, there's paid leave benefits that are use it or lose it. And that's not fair to our federal workers. They shouldn't lose benefits they've earned through no fault of their own.
This is a fair amount of time, too, that you're talking about. The press release that your office put out says federal workers that accrue over 240 hours of annual leave either lose those hours or have to use it by the end of the year. I don't think anybody thinks that all those folks are going to be able to use that amount of time by the end of this year or necessarily want to, right?
Absolutely. I think every American right now is dealing with the same challenge associated with this pandemic. It's not like folks can travel much right now as it is, and federal workers shouldn't have to sacrifice the paid leave benefits that they've earned just because they chose to prioritize serving our country. So that's really the rationale behind this bill. Senator Hirono introduced the bill in the Senate. I've introduced it in the House to make sure that whether it's the workers at Naval Base Kitsap or elsewhere within the federal government are able to keep that unused paid time off that they've earned. And I think that's common sense, whether we're talking about shipyard workers or postal service employees or folks who work for the Social Security Administration or the NIH researchers, to be able to carry over that leave that they've accrued into the next year. I think that's a simple, common sense fix, and hopefully will help a lot of families.
Given the workload that Congress is up against with spending bills and the Armed Services Committees are still working on NDAA and so on, what's your sense of the prognosis for at least getting this bill to a vote in the House?
I'm really hopeful. Obviously, we've got terrific support, including there in the D.C. metropolitan area, folks like Jennifer Wexton and Don Beyer and Jerry Connolly, importantly, since he's one of the subcommittee chairs that would have purview over this. They're all sponsors of the bill. We've seen tremendous support from the federal employee unions, and I think that gives us a window of opportunity. There's it is simply an issue of fairness. I think people will understand and appreciate that. And this is the type of thing that Democrats and Republicans in Congress ought to be able to get done.
You mentioned the companion bills in the Senate. Senator Hirono introducing that bill. The Senate obviously works a lot differently and is set up politically a lot different than the House is right now. Any sense of from her of the prognosis on that side?
Well, again, I think there's a recognition that this is a matter of fairness, and I know she will and I will do all we can to make this happen. Having people in a position where they have to use it or lose it just isn't fair. And this should be the type of thing that could even move on suspension. I don't think there is or should be controversy around this. It's just a matter of getting it done and doing what's right on behalf of our federal workers who are playing an important role on behalf of the citizens of our country.
We just have a couple of minutes left, Congressman. I appreciate your time today. You have another bill I want to ask you about while you're here, the Disabled Veteran Leave Extension Restoration Act. What does that bill do, sir?
Well, in 2015, Congress passed a bill called the Wounded Warriors Federal Leave Act into law. It created disabled veteran leave to any new federal employee who is a veteran with a service-connected disability. There were some parameters to that. Unfortunately, they're in the same use it or lose it scenario. And I just think if you serve our country, we ought to have your back. That goes not just for active duty military families, but for our veterans too. And the reason this really matters, starting in March, the pandemic caused a lot of our VA healthcare facilities to cancel or to delay some of the non-emergency in-person appointments for our vets, including a significant number of elective and non-essential medical procedures. So now, as VA facilities begin to work through that backlog of nearly 6 months of canceled or rescheduled appointments, I've heard from a number of disabled vets in our region who are at risk of not being able to use their benefits because it's use it or lose it. So I think that our veterans should receive the benefits they've earned, that they deserve, even in the midst of a pandemic. And that's why last week we introduced this bill, the Disabled Veteran Leave Extension and Restoration Act, that'll just extend the ability of vets to use their disabled veteran leave and to restore leave that's already been lost for some. This is supported by Democrats and Republicans. To me, it's important that all of our veterans have access to quality health care, to affordable health care. This bill would help with that. And again, it's just not fair for folks to have to forfeit benefits that they've earned simply because of a pandemic that's not their fault.
Congressman Kilmer, thank you very much for joining me again today. It's great to have you back.
You bet. Great to see you.